They laughed when her rifle jammed in front of the entire range, the sound of their mockery echoing louder than the gunfire itself. To them, she was just a joke in dusty boots, a farm girl pretending to belong among snipers, her weapons sputtering like it was as broken as their belief in her. But the day she fixed that rifle, steadied her trembling hands, and took aim at a target moving faster than a hawk's dive, the laughter stopped cold. Because what she hit that afternoon wasn't supposed to be hittable. And when the smoke cleared, the world learned that the girl they mocked for a broken gun could outshoot every man in the field. So before you scroll, remember, sometimes the one they laugh at is the one they should have feared. Hit subscribe, because this story will make you believe in what happens when doubt meets precision, and a broken weapon becomes a legend's tool. The morning sun rose over the West Texas training grounds, casting streaks of gold across the red dirt and endless silence of the shooting range. Cadet Avery Locke adjusted the sling of her old M24 rifle, its scratched barrel and half-loose scope earning her smirks from the other recruits who lined up beside her. The wind was harsh, sweeping the grit into her eyes, but she blinked it away, jaw tight, pretending not to hear them whisper. She's still using that relic? Heard her bolt jammed last week again? Yeah, maybe she'll finally retire that antique. She ignored them all, focusing instead on the distant metal targets glinting under the Texas sun, like silver coins daring her to miss. Her father's voice still echoed in her mind, rough and steady from the last night she saw him alive. It ain't the gun, kid. It's the person behind it. A rifle's just metal. You're the aim. He'd been a marksman, the best in his unit, until a mission went wrong in Kandahar. She was only 15 when she got the folded flag and the apology letter. Now 21, Avery was here to finish what he started, not in war, but in mastery. Her goal wasn't glory, it was precision. She'd rebuilt this rifle herself from his old parts, each screw tightened with the same stubbornness that ran in her blood. But today, the rifle wasn't cooperating. When she chambered the round, the bolt resisted halfway. A grinding metallic sound betrayed her effort. The instructor, Sergeant Moore, eyed her with that half-smile that meant trouble. "Locke," he said, voice booming. "If that antique's gonna fall apart again, maybe you should fetch a broom instead." Laughter rippled through the ranks. Avery's ears burned, but she bit her tongue, focusing on clearing the jam. She felt the spring's tension misaligned. Again. The rifle coughed as she forced the bolt forward, and when she fired, the round went wide, missing the target by a solid foot. Moore blew his whistle. "Cease fire!" he barked. Everyone reset, except Locke. "You stay." As the others unloaded and walked off toward the tent, whispering, Avery felt the sting of humiliation. She'd spent nights cleaning this weapon, testing the chamber, adjusting the trigger pressure, all to prove that she could make something broken work better than something brand new. But under the instructor's stare, the truth was bitter. Maybe it wasn't enough. "Why stick with that thing?" Moore asked, crossing his arms. "You've got access to standard-issue rifles. Hell, any one of those would shoot cleaner." Avery wiped the sweat from her brow. "Because I'm not done learning from it," she said quietly. "It's not the rifle that's broken." He studied her for a long moment, then walked away, muttering something about stubborn kids and lost causes. That night, under the dim light of her barracks lamp, Avery disassembled the rifle piece by piece. Springs, bolts, firing pin, all laid out like the parts of her own soul. She remembered her father's steady hands guiding hers years ago as he taught her how to clean it, whispering, "Respect your weapon and it'll respect you back." She cleaned each part until it gleamed, then found the culprit, a hairline crack inside the bolt carrier group, tiny, invisible unless you looked for it. She had no replacement part, no supply room privilege. So she did what her father would have done, fixed it with precision and patience. Using a welding torch borrowed from the motor pool and a sliver of metal from an old wrench, she reforged the broken piece until it gleamed like silver lightning. By the time dawn touched the horizon, Avery's eyes were red from exhaustion, but her rifle felt whole again, balanced, heavy, ready. The next morning's test would determine which recruits would move on to the advanced sniper trials, the dream assignment, the gateway to the elite. And she was done being the joke in dusty boots. At sunrise, she stepped onto the range again, the same old rifle slung over her shoulder. The other recruits snickered, but something in her stance made them uneasy. She stood still, calm, focused. The air was hot and sharp with the smell of gun oil and pride. Sergeant Moore blew the whistle. "Targets up!" The metal silhouettes popped from the ground at 300 meters, then 400, then 500. The challenge was endurance, accuracy over time. She inhaled, exhaled, and fired. The first shot rang true, hitting dead center. The next 5 followed in perfect rhythm. The laughter behind her faded into stunned silence. When Moore called ceasefire, the scoreboard flashed her name at the top. Avery Locke, 600 points. A perfect score. The sergeant approached slowly, face unreadable. "You fixed that relic?" he asked. Avery simply nodded. He leaned in, voice lower now. "Then keep it close, Locke. You might just need it. Next week's exercise won't be on flat ground." She met his gaze. "Where then?" He smirked. "In the air." And for the first time since she'd arrived, Avery felt a pulse of something new. Not fear, not pressure, but anticipation. Because if there was one thing she'd learned from her father, it was that real shooters don't just aim at what's easy, they aim at what moves. The next week arrived like a storm, both in weather and in purpose. Dark clouds rolled over the horizon as the recruits assembled on the makeshift runway at Falcon Field, a desolate strip of concrete surrounded by open plains and rusting aircraft hulks. The words "aerial target drills" were painted in bold on the whiteboard, and beneath it stood Sergeant Moore with his clipboard, expression colder than the wind. "Today," he began, his voice cutting through the hum of engines, "you'll engage moving targets, drones to be exact. You'll be firing from open truck platforms while they move at 30 miles per hour. It's meant to test your timing, coordination, and ability to handle stress. Miss 3 consecutive shots and you're done, permanently." The group shifted nervously. Avery, standing near the back, tightened her grip on her rifle. Her fixed bolt slid like silk now, the chamber clicking perfectly with each motion. Around her, the others loaded shiny new rifles, whispering strategies. She didn't join in. She was listening to the engines, memorizing their rhythm, calculating wind direction. When the trucks rolled out onto the range, she climbed aboard the last one, the wind tearing at her hair. Beside her was Cadet Ryan Briggs, one of the loudest critics she'd faced. "Guess the legend of the broken rifle lives on," he sneered. "Hope your duct tape holds up." She ignored him, eyes forward. The whistle blew. The convoy accelerated. Drones shot out from behind a hangar, silver streaks slicing through the air at erratic speeds. Shots cracked instantly, bullets ripping through the wind, tracer rounds glowing like meteors. Some targets shattered, others veered off untouched. Avery steadied her rifle against the truck's side rail, her breathing synchronized with the engine's pulse. One drone swooped low. She tracked it, squeezed, fired. A clean hit, the target exploded midair. The recoil kicked against her shoulder, solid but balanced. Another came from above. She pivoted, aimed a fraction ahead of its path, fired again. Direct impact, 2 for 2. Even Moore's whistle paused. By the time the truck looped back to the start, Avery had dropped 7 drones, the most hits of anyone in the round. Moore called her over. "Locke," he said, scanning his clipboard. "You've got an eye, I'll give you that. But tomorrow's evaluation isn't about skill. It's about control." She frowned. "Control?" He nodded toward a hangar in the distance. "You'll find out at 0600. Bring your rifle." That night, she couldn't sleep. Her mind replayed the rhythm of those drones. The wind, the recoil. She sat on her bunk cleaning the rifle again, even though it didn't need it. Every motion was a ritual. Clean, check, close, breathe. The cracked bolt, the one she'd welded herself, reflected the lamplight like a scar turned into armor. When dawn arrived, she was already outside. The hangar loomed ahead, silent except for the hum of generators. Inside, Sergeant Moore stood beside a small table with an odd device, a helmet rig wired to sensors and an old VR frame. "Step up," he said. "We're testing reflex targeting." You'll wear this and shoot virtual drones using real-time feedback. Think you can handle it? She nodded, slipping on the rig. The world around her shifted. Suddenly, she was standing in a digital canyon, sky alive with simulated drones zigzagging through smoke trails. Her rifle felt heavier in this world, her heartbeat echoing in her ears. She fired once, twice. The sound was muffled but precise. Each hit flashed as a burst of red light. Then, without warning, the simulation glitched. A figure appeared, a human silhouette instead of a drone. She hesitated. The voice of Moore echoed faintly. Targets adapt. Keep focus. The figure moved erratically, sprinting between rocks. She tracked it, recognizing its outline. It looked exactly like her father, uniform and all. For a heartbeat, she froze. The system must have scanned an old database, maybe from the Academy's files. No, she whispered, pulse quickening. But the figure raised its weapon in her direction. The simulation's voice roared, "Engage!" Avery fired out of instinct. The image shattered. When the VR dissolved, she was trembling, sweat dripping down her neck. Moore watched her closely. "You hesitated," he said. "Why?" It looked like—" She stopped herself. "Nothing. I just needed a second." He studied her silently, then turned away. Second chances don't exist in combat, Locke. Remember that. She stood there long after he left, staring at her reflection in the metal wall. That night, she sat by the window watching storm clouds crawl across the horizon. Her father's voice echoed in memory. "The target's never what it seems, but your decision will always define you." The next morning, the range announcement came over the loudspeakers. "Final aerial live test in 48 hours. Weather unpredictable. Targets will vary." The phrase, "targets will vary," stuck with her. She didn't know that within 2 days, she'd face something no simulation could prepare her for. A flying target no one expected, one that would make or break her legend forever. The morning of the final test arrived under a sky painted with restless clouds and the low growl of thunder rolling across the distant plains. The recruits stood in formation on the field, eyes locked on the aircraft hovering overhead. A modified Black Hawk with open side doors and harnesses dangling like steel serpents. Sergeant Moore paced in front of them, rain beating on his cap, his voice carrying through the wind. "This is your last test before assignment. You'll be firing from that helicopter at live moving targets. You hit nothing, you're out. You panic, you're out. You flinch, you're done. Only those who adapt stay airborne." The chopper's rotors thundered louder as Avery checked her rifle one last time. The welded bolt gleamed faintly in the gray light, her father's ghost in every reflection. She could feel the vibrations through her boots, her pulse syncing with the machine's rhythm. The other recruits exchanged nervous glances. Ryan Briggs, ever cocky, nudged her as they loaded in. "Don't drop that antique, Locke," he shouted over the wind. "Wouldn't want it to fall apart mid-air." She ignored him, locking her harness and securing her rifle. The chopper lifted, the ground shrinking fast beneath them. The storm broke open as they climbed, sheets of rain whipping across the open doors, wind clawing at their gear. The world below blurred into streaks of mud and motion. "Targets incoming!" The pilot called over the intercom. Suddenly, out from the clouds, the drones appeared, larger this time, black and sleek, flying in unpredictable patterns. Some dived low, others darted toward the chopper like angry hornets. Moore's voice came through their headsets. "Engage!" Gunfire erupted instantly. The roar of rifles mingled with thunder as bullets sliced through the rain. Avery took aim, her vision narrowing through the scope. The wind was wild, her platform shaking, but she calculated every drift, every vibration. She fired, and a drone exploded in a burst of flame, debris scattering into the storm. Another one zipped past, its engine whining, and she pivoted, adjusting a hair faster than instinct. Another shot, another hit. "Two confirmed," the pilot shouted. Briggs missed twice and cursed loudly, his shots going wide. The turbulence worsened, tossing them sideways. One recruit lost grip and nearly fell, screaming as the harness yanked him back. The storm was turning violent now. Lightning forked across the sky, and static interference crackled in their comms. Then, out of nowhere, something new appeared on radar. Unidentified contact, the pilot warned. Bearing west, moving fast. Moore's tone changed instantly. What kind of contact? Not a drone. It's... The rest was cut off as a shadow passed beneath them. Something metallic, massive, and fast. Avery glanced down, heart pounding. It wasn't part of the exercise. It looked like an old training jet, but unmanned, tearing across the range at low altitude. "Everyone hold fire!" Moore barked, but Briggs didn't hear, or didn't care. He raised his rifle and shot, the round sparking off the jet's wing. The object veered sharply, banking toward them. "Brace!" the pilot yelled as the shockwave rocked the helicopter. One of the drones clipped the rotor, sending a spray of debris through the cabin. Panic rippled through the recruits. Avery gripped her rifle tight, scanning the chaos. The jet, if it was a jet, was coming back around, its nose tilting upward like it was alive, like it was hunting them. "It's locked on!" the pilot shouted. "That thing's got radar active." "That's impossible," Moore snapped. "This isn't part of the drill." The sky lit up again as lightning revealed the jet's markings. Faded, ghost-like, U.S. Air Force insignia half burned off. Avery's eyes widened. She'd seen that symbol before, in one of her father's old photos. It couldn't be. The same unit emblem, the same number on the tail. "Sergeant!" she yelled. "That aircraft, and it's not a drone. It's from my father's squadron." Moore turned sharply, disbelief flashing in his eyes. "What are you talking about? He was flying that model before." Another explosion cut her off as a drone hit the chopper's rear stabilizer. The tail swung violently, alarms screaming. "We're losing control," the pilot shouted. Moore grabbed the side rail, yelling, "Everyone secure weapons! We're making an emergency drop." The ground was spinning now. Flashes of lightning, shards of rain, the ghost plane circling like a predator. Avery's heart pounded in her throat. She could see it lining up again, coming closer, faster. "That's not automated!" she shouted over the storm. "It's remote-guided. Someone's controlling it." Moore's voice was grim. "Who the hell would—" But before he could finish, the chopper jolted. A drone slammed into the side, sparks igniting near the fuel line. "We're hit! Everyone jump now!" Moore ordered. Avery hesitated only long enough to see the jet banking one last time toward them, its cockpit glass flashing. And for a split second, she thought she saw a human silhouette inside. Then the blast threw her backward, and the world vanished into a roaring white void. She hit the ground hard somewhere far below, her parachute half tangled in the brush. Her ears rang, her rifle still clutched in her hands. The storm raged above, and through the rain she saw it again, that ghost jet circling once more, as if watching her. Then, with a low growl that sent chills through her blood, it vanished into the clouds. The world was eerily quiet when Avery woke, the storm having passed, leaving the sky bruised and pale. Smoke curled in the distance where the helicopter had gone down, but she was alone in the open field, her uniform torn, her body aching. Her rifle lay beside her, scratched but intact, still whole, still hers. She pushed herself to her feet, scanning the horizon, and there it was again. The faint roar of that jet, echoing through the canyon-like valley beyond the range. Heart pounding, she limped toward the sound, every instinct screaming that this was no ordinary drill, that the past had somehow bled into the present. When she reached the ridge, she froze. The jet was half buried in the dirt below, smoke curling from its wings. And painted faintly across its nose beneath layers of scorched paint was her father's call sign. The realization hit like a bullet. Someone had recovered his old aircraft, someone was using it, but for what? As she approached, the cockpit hissed open with a creak, revealing nothing but an empty seat and a single folded piece of metal resting where a pilot's hands should have been. It was a dog tag, her father's. Etched on the back were words she'd never seen before. "Finish the shot." Behind her, Sergeant Moore's voice broke through the static of a nearby radio. "Locke, do you read me?" "The control tower says that jet wasn't on any manifest. It's off record. Return to base immediately." Avery stared at the tag, the ghost of her father's voice echoing in her chest, and then lifted her rifle. Pointing it toward the horizon where a new target drone was rising, One final test against the storm-colored sky. She steadied her aim, breath calm, the old wound in her rifle glinting like silver truth. And with one shot, she hit it, clean, perfect, impossible, the target bursting like the past finally releasing her. Silence followed, deep and final. When the echo faded, she whispered, "Broken things still shoot straight, Dad." Then she walked toward the smoking wreck, leaving behind the laughter, the doubts, and every limit she had ever known.